Hi, welcome to another episode of Nutritious Entrees with Peter, and that's me. Today we're going to be talking about our gut. So what's the big deal with our gut? Well, it is one of the body's largest organ. It has 9 meters of piping, and you can stretch it out and it will cover a whole tennis court. It's a big organ and it's got a big job. It digests food, it assimilates food, it creates this space for a microbiome, the gut microbiome, which is a conglomeration of bugs, not just bacteria, but all sorts of single-celled organisms that provide an influence on our whole system. There's about 40 trillion bugs in our intestine, and comparing that, we've only got like 30 trillion cells in our whole body. So they have a big role to play in our system. The gut microbiome has significant influences. It influences our mental health. It influences our weight, how heavy we are. It provides a lot of extra energy for us. It helps detoxify our system, and it actually has a huge impact on our immune system. It helps modulate how our immune system works. It helps settle it down so we don't overreact to unnecessary organisms, and helps keep us on that even keel. There's talk about probiotics, postbiotics, psychobiotics, prebiotics. There's lots of different terminology. So let's just run through a couple of those now. So probiotics are the live bacteria that we consume that will provide a health benefit for us. So the default is yogurt. So by definition, yogurt has live bacteria that we consume, and hopefully it gets past the acid in our gut and gets into the large intestine. Most of our bugs reside in the colon or the large intestine, and it's unhealthy for us for them to migrate in big numbers to other parts of our intestinal tract. So no, they mainly just hang in the large intestine. So that's probiotics. Prebiotics are fibers which we don't really digest too well, and they go all the way down to the large intestine, and then the bacteria are then able to digest those foods. And so prebiotics are foods that help nourish and grow the good bugs in our intestine. Postbiotics are simply the end products that the good bugs produce that help us. So the prebiotics go into the intestine, the probiotics, which we put in, they'll digest that food and they'll produce postbiotics. And postbiotics are those nutrients which are helpful for us. So that would be things like short chain fatty acids, which have a positive impact on our system that those bugs release. I did also say psychobiotics. Yep, psychobugs. So these are bugs which have been shown to have a positive impact on our mental health. So there have been a couple of studies where they've given people with anxiety or people with autism these probiotics, and they've had a reduction in symptoms and how they're going. So yeah, no, that's positive space for the bugs. It definitely has been a big area of study, the microbiome and its role in our health and well-being. So that's the difference between prebiotics and postbiotics. So then it also that takes us on to what should I do then to help my gut and to help this gut health and this microbiome? What can I do to help it? So some good things that you can do and some things that you probably shouldn't do. So the things that we probably shouldn't do will be things like drinking lots of caffeine and drinking lots of alcohol. Not that you can't do any, you just shouldn't have too much. Really high fat foods or takeaway foods, highly processed foods like really sugary foods or high GI, glycemic index foods, those things are unhelpful for the good bugs. What else is helpful for what's unhelpful is carnivorous. So the carnivore diet's quite popular at the moment, and the studies are showing it's not so good for our good bugs. And the last thing, which I think is important, is the constant state of being fed. So the studies have shown that if someone's eating throughout the day and is well fed all the time, there's no fasted state, then the bacteria that are pathogenic, so the bugs that are unhelpful for us, start picking up in numbers and having a negative influence on our microbiome and also the rest of our system. Yep. So definitely this Western style of eating that we got an abundance of food all the time and we eat large volumes and we can snack regularly. Those things are not necessarily helpful for our gut biome. So that's not helpful. So what is helpful? So obviously taking the good bugs is helpful, the probiotics. So our best source of that is kefir or the drinking yogurts. They have, some of them will have like 50 billion bugs per serve. And the other good thing about them is that they're not just one strain, they've got multi strains. They've got a mixture of bugs, which is really helpful for us. So all the yogurts are good. Tempeh, which is fermented tofu, that's a good probiotic. Miso, sauerkraut, kombucha. Kombucha is a Korean beverage that uses a SCOBY to create some bugs. And the interesting thing with SCOBY, it's two different bugs. There's bacteria and yeast. So there's some good, yes, there's healthful yeast. Would you believe it? Yep. So those things are helpful for us. What else is good for us is the prebiotics, as I mentioned before. So essentially, it's fiber. So the studies show in Australia we are only eating like 20 grams of fiber a day. We should be eating over 30. And for gut health, anything around 40 is actually very good. So that's like double the fiber we're currently eating. So trying to eat more whole grain, fruit and veg, or food sources, nuts and seeds and legumes. Those things increase our fiber intake. Specifically, studies have shown that fructans, which is a type of short chain carbohydrate, has been shown to be helpful in specifically feeding the good bugs. So that's the garlic and onion family, the legumes, and wheat, rye, and barley. So those food sources will give you a good hit of those prebiotics, which is good for your bugs. In saying this, bear in mind that if you've got irritable bowel syndrome or some other factors that are unhelpful, current practice is actually to have low FODMAP diet, which is quite the opposite of what I'm suggesting here. So if you wanted some more specific suggestions on what you should do individually, make sure you reach out to me because this is just generic information. Polyphenols. Polyphenols are an antioxidant which have been shown to enhance the good bugs as well. Food sources of polyphenols would be green tea, cacao or cocoa powder or dark chocolate, nuts and seeds, berries, apples. So they're a good handful of specific sources of polyphenols and very good to have in your diet. Other non-diet related helpful things for your gut microbiome is physical fitness. So studies show lots of physical exercise or physical fitness is associated with a great microbiome. And the last thing was fasting. So having periods of having a break from eating. So most of us will sort of eat dinner and then have breakfast and break the fast. So it's good to give yourself a nice long time where there's a fasted state, and those studies are showing that in a fasted state it promotes the good bugs. How long does it take to see a benefit? Well, I think, if you've just got mild discomfort or gastrointestinal issues, making some dietary changes can have a positive impact within 2 to 4 days or within a week easily. But if there's some chronic conditions like inflammation in the bowel, or skin conditions or metabolic conditions, then expect a little bit more time frame for that for your body to start to display some symptoms. But bear in mind, studies have shown just changing what you eat within 24 hours, the microbiome has changed. So it's very adaptable. There's a lot that goes on in the gut microbiome, and it also has a positive impact on our well-being. Just a couple of those specific examples of how the gut microbiome has an impact on us, is studies showing comparing kids that have been delivered through C-section, cesarean, or natural birth delivery. Through C-section, the infants are not exposed to the mother's microbiome that well. And so they're more susceptible. Studies showing they're more susceptible for allergies, asthma and eczema, these atopic conditions later on in life. Whereas the babies born through the birth canal, they have lower risks, lower incidences of those conditions. I was talking to a nurse the other day, and they're offering the opportunity for swabbing bubs through cesarean section with mum's microbiome to help in that setting, which I think is a great thing. Another example of microbiome is obese individuals. So overweight people will have a very unique microbiome compared to lean people. And studies have shown if overweight people rub shoulders with lean people, the lean people's microbiome starts to have an impact and an alteration on the microbiome of the overweight person, and subsequently has a support on weight loss. That's pretty crazy. You may have heard of the term the gut-brain axis. So that's just the connection from your brain and your stomach. So the enteric nervous system is a huge conglomeration of neurons attached to the gut. And there's more neurons attached to your gut, than there is in your spinal cord. So the gut and your central nervous system in your brain are very intricately connected, and they have there's a two-way street. So, for example, our bacteria in our gut can actually produce happy hormones like dopamine and serotonin and have an influence on our brain. And the opposite is true as well. So our stress hormones can have a negative impact on our gut microbiome. So there's a gut-brain axis. So there's neuron communications, there's neurotransmitters or neurochemicals that are released from the bugs into the system and have an impact on our brain. Studies have shown that subjects with anxiety or autism being given probiotics displayed a reduction in their symptoms. So there's a very intricate connection there in the gut-brain connection. The IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, that's also a good example of the component of stress in that space. So studies have shown around half the cases of irritable bowel syndrome, the primary trigger is actually stress. So obviously, what you eat will then have an aggressive effect or an enhancing effect on those symptoms. But having good impact on your gut, on your mental health, will improve your gut function. Yeah. So there's a lot in your gut. So I've just sprouted out 13 minutes of stuff about what all about your gut and what's good for it. And hopefully there's a couple of things there that you took home that you can implement into your routine to support your good guts. So God bless you guys, and until next time, stay well.